everybody, and welcome to the Children's Media Association panel on developing your best audience for any platform. I'm Karen Martin, the VP of Programming at CMA, and I'd like to welcome our members who are joining us tonight. And if you're not a member, please consider joining our community. CMA is the nonprofit community that connects the dots across all corners of the children's media industry. As makers and thinkers and innovators, we believe that by learning and playing together, we strengthen ourselves, our community, and content that we create for kids. CMA is run entirely by volunteers, and we're always looking for members to get more involved and take on leadership and support roles. If you'd like to join the team, simply fill out the volunteer form on our website. And if you have any questions for our panelists tonight, please feel free to put them into the comments at any time, and we'll get to them during the last 10 minutes of the event. So without any further ado, our panel is, again, developing your best audience for any platform. And we're joined by 4 amazing experts who are here to share their proven strategies for building a thriving platform that resonates with young audiences. They'll discuss how to position your content and craft a robust audience development strategy that transcends platforms. Our first panelist is Marc Cantone. He is an Emmy-nominated producer who has been writing and directing linear, digital, and audio content for over 15 years, specifically in the kids space. He's worked for Sprout, Universal Kids, Baby First TV, Tinkercast, and the Pinna Podcast Network. He's currently VP of Preschool Digital Content at Nickelodeon. His colleague, Jessica Ferrer, is the Senior Manager of Audience Development on the Nickelodeon Unscripted and Digital Franchise Studio team. She oversees YouTube channel strategies for some of Nickelodeon's biggest preschool properties like Paw Patrol, Blue's Clues, and You, and Dora. Before working in kids media, she taught English abroad in Spain, France, and South Korea, where she got to work with kids firsthand. Jessica graduated from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington with a BA in Communication Studies with minors in English and journalism. You can find her exploring LA's restaurant scene or boxing after work. We are also joined by Alexis Rice, who oversees the Media Co-Partnerships team from YouTube Youth, where she leads management of TV, film, and toy partners and strategic initiatives focused on kid, teen, and family content. She joined Google in 2016 as a business development manager for Google Play Movies and TV. Before joining Google, she served as vice president of media research and business analysis for Warner Brothers Television. Alexis started her career in entertainment at Lucasfilm Limited, traveling the country with Darth Vader, and Chewbacca for film, TV, and live appearances. She earned her MBA from UCLA Anderson and a BA in economics from Harvard University. And finally, Marley Diazdelvalle serves as the director of talent at Frederator Networks, where he manages some of YouTube's biggest art and animation influencers, as well as Federator's team of managers. Additionally, he serves as host and executive producer of the draw and game show, Cartoon Punch. Welcome to everybody.
Hi there.
Hi. So today,
hi everyone.
Today we're going to start talking about the creative end of this and content, like what type of content attracts and engages an audience. And the first question is, what type of content has proven to be most successful for Nickelodeon? I think, Jessica, you're going to run with this.
There we go. Yeah, if I can come off mute. You would think by now we'd all be experts in doing that. Still hard. Yeah, so the type of content that works really well for us over on the preschool side at Nickelodeon is, at the end of the day, I don't want to simplify everything that we do because we do a lot of really good creative, but compilations do so well for us. And that can really consist of compilations of show content or compilations of our original formats. Anything that's 30 minutes plus really performs well for the preschool audience, just because you can sit the kid down in front of the TV or the tablet and go cook dinner or anything like that. But we do work on some really great creative as well that I'll let Marc dig into a little bit more, but these types of creative really maximize the best worlds of YouTube formats for the preschool audience, like our randomizers, our original formats, or, even shout out to Marc again for his Emmy nomination for Rhymes Through Times, which was our original preschool format, the history musical for kids. So we get to do a lot of really great creative that performs well. But Marc, why don't you talk some more about some of that creative?
Thank you, Jess. I already learned something new, and that's that you box after work. I don't understand how we've been working together for all these years, and I don't know that. So I've come away with something already.
I have to keep you on your toes.
Yeah. No, so obviously for Nickelodeon, what works for Nickelodeon is our monster IP, which is Paw Patrol, Blaze and the Monster Machines, Blue, Dora, who's now blowing up with the new show, and like Jeff was saying, the types of content, the formats that work for us. Yes, we have three buckets essentially. We have our low lift, what we call our low lift bucket, which is scene lifts, compilations, those really long TRT that gets us a lot of volume, a lot of runtime. Then we have our medium lift content, which we call remix content. That's where we take scenes, existing clips from shows, and we add new graphics, new animation, new VO, and turn them into something fresh and new. So we're taking the old shows, the old things that kids have seen a million times, and creating a new series around it. Like, for example, we have a show called Blaze and the Makeover Machines, where we basically just take the Blaze characters, throw funny, silly things on them, and then let them do their thing. It's kind of really silly, really fun, but it's a great example of a remix style of content, a little old, a little new. And then we have our fully custom animated originals that are either 2D, 3D, sometimes live action, and they can run anything from music videos. We've done 50 plus Blue's Clues and New Nursery Rhyme music videos to we're doing about 42 minutes of custom animation for the new Dora to help support the new Dora launch. And that's full 3D animation pipeline work. So it runs the gamut from our volume play of scene lifts and compilations all the way up to helping launch or relaunch IP with, say, our Dora original series that we're doing. And so that's kind of that's what we do. That's what we know works for us.
Right.
And we're fortunate to have this huge IP to work with.
Yeah, you great IPs. Marley, how does it work for Federator? What's the content, the appeal there?
Sure. So I work more so on our MCN side, managing the creators that we have. So we represent mostly artists and animation influencers. So I would say, much to the community's chagrin, a lot of times storytime animation is still really, really popular. So a personality telling a story about their lives. It's in a weird spot right now where I think the influencers and the originators of the format are sort of over it, to be honest. And but the audience isn't. And so we're seeing this really interesting thing happen where a lot of them are starting to kind of transition to almost like animated video essay style content. And it's working for some of them. It's not working for others. But it's cool seeing that transition sort of happen. And then other than that, it's a lot of media criticism, specifically about animated stuff, mostly. So cartoon reviewers, movie reviewers with a heavy focus on animated movies, be that, Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, stuff like that.
Okay. Alexis, are you seeing any trends as far as YouTube is concerned, and what was attracting youth in children's audience?
Yeah, definitely. Tons of trends that we see. The thing that's unique about YouTube is we like to say we offer each kid the opportunity to explore their unique interests. Mm-hmm. So that can be broad trends, whether it's music, popular television programs, or more niche interests like cooking or crafting. So we really see a broad range of content that's performing well. Two things that the other panelists have touched on that I would just highlight is, for YouTube, it's very easy to think of the early days of YouTube of, families watching on a mobile device, watching those quick videos in between daily life moments. But now we really see continued growth and focus on the living room screen. YouTube's made a ton of investments in that platform, obviously with things as big as our NFL deal, but really trying to optimize and make the experience as seamless for families who want to watch together in the living room. So that long form content that Marc and Jessica were talking about, compilations, full length episodes, we see platforms like Netflix and Disney uploading episodes on YouTube before they even go to their own streaming service. And that's really because of the demand. Families love to watch it seamlessly on the TV. So on the one hand, we have the long form content that's performing really well. And then this year we launched our Made for Kids Shorts product. So answering the demand for those quicker vertical videos that folks love to swipe through. And we continue to see growth there. So really on YouTube, it's kind of the opportunity to offer a little bit of everything for everyone and just making sure you're optimizing for that specific audience.
Based on the optimization question, what's the best approach to optimizing your content? How do you get there?
Yeah, the suggestion we always give to creators is really to focus on the data. So through your own YouTube analytics, you can start to understand what's the content that people are looking for, what's the content that's keeping them engaged, and what's the content that keeps them coming back. The analogy I always kind of use is like, how well do you draw people to YouTube? How likely are people to click on your thumbnails? That's that click-through rate. How well do you keep people on the platform? So that's the average view duration. How long do they watch once they click into your video? And then how likely are you to bring them back? So after they finish a video, are they subscribing? Are they sharing? Or are they, a repeat viewer of your channel? Those are really 3 important signals for us as a platform, and where I always suggest people start to understand their data. But we offer a lot more data now, so you can really go deep on anything.
I just lost Marley. Okay, so Jessica, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say, in addition to everything that Alexis mentioned, is that one of the things that I'm a really big stickler for when it comes to optimization is keywords. I think SEO is so important, and I think it goes to something that you've put all in the questions that you've given us is how you think about your audience needs, because keywords will really clue you into what the audience is searching for and how they search. So a really easy optimization tip is, if you're trying to figure out, are kids searching for songs about vehicles or songs about cars? You go to the YouTube search bar and you type in songs about cars or vehicles, see what comes up. And it'll just tell you how you need to find the audience that you're looking for. So I truly believe in, for us at Nick Jr., using our show names, our character names in the titles and other metadata that we use to reach that audience and help find our fans.
And just one thing I'd add to what Jessica mentioned, if you do that same search query within the YouTube Kids app, we do kind of prioritize search based on interests. So if you just start typing songs about, you can start to get an indication of what's most likely kids are searching for within the YouTube Kids app. So that's an extra pro tip.
And it's just really just knowing your audience and using what Alexis is saying and Jess is saying to study the data and to know what your audience likes. When we first launched the Blaze YouTube channel, we had an idea of what it would be and what kids would respond to. Blaze, the show itself, has lots of music, lots of awesome music in it. So, okay, we're going to really lean into the Blaze songs. We're going to lean into the adventure aspect of Blaze. And so we launched with obviously with clips, compilations, but we launched with our traditional remix content. And we found that the songs were not performing, and the kind of adventure aspects were not performing. And with the data that we learned, we figured out that the audience was really you see our spikes in retention on the gamified parts of Blaze. That's what the audience was really responding to. So we started creating all these gamified series using Blaze. And before we knew it, usually when you get your reports at the end of each month, it's like your top performing videos, always compilations because they're longer. For the Blaze channel, was the top 10 was the majority that were these custom games that we were making. And because we really honed in on what the audience was responding to through the data that we learned through YouTube, you can really tailor, but you got to just keep trying different things. You're not going to come out of the gate and get it right, but you also have to do a lot of it to see what's working and what's not working. So you don't just want to do one or two things, 1 or 2 episodes or something, because you're not going to get enough data from that. So you got to do, what do we do, Jess? About 4 or 5, 6 episodes or something before we decide if we're going to pivot or not?
Yeah, 3 to 5, I think, is usually a good indicator of whether or not something is going to perform in the long term for us, especially with preschool. And maybe, I don't know, Marley, if this is so much true in the creator space or for older audiences or animation from creators, but Preschool content often has a longer tail, meaning that it'll take a little bit longer for it to perform or reach those numbers. And it's my understanding, it's, you know, I sound like somebody who doesn't know how to talk to teenagers, but that, you know, things go into fashion really fast. You get a lot of views in like a week, and then maybe your content doesn't perform as well after that week period, or, you know, everybody's on to the next thing. In preschool for us, it usually takes about 30 days for us to see how something is doing. So the more, around 3 to 5 episodes is usually what we do when we're piloting a new series to see when something works. But Marley, I don't know if you want to add to that with from a creator perspective, or for big kids, I don't know.
I was saying, it depends on the type of content that the creator makes. So if you're doing media criticism, for example, or like movie reviews, your review of, I don't know, like the new Exorcist movie, like it's going to be kind of pretty dated, I would say, even on the day of release. But if you're doing something like storytime animation, you're going to have a pretty ever-revolving door of people like discovering that video, I would say. You know, everyone is going through these first-time experiences and looking for someone to kind of help guide them or help them make sense of it. So I would really say it depends on like the type of content that you're making in your day-to-day.
When you're attracting kids in the preschool realm, so are you also targeting parents, and how is that different?
On preschool, it's the preschooler first. The parent will usually set up what we call the watch session with the kid, give them the tablet or the phone. But once it's in the preschooler's hand, there's no co-viewing for our preschool content. It's strictly tailored specifically to the preschooler who's watching.
I was just going to add to what Marc was saying. That's in part because that's our target audience that we're trying to reach. And due to different laws and regulations and things like that, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of it all and, you know, be boring about it. But it's hard to target both. So you have to pick your lane. And for us on YouTube at Nickelodeon, that lane is kids.
Okay.
One
Marley.
trend that we have started to see that kind of adds or builds upon that, however, is specifically for preschool music. We're starting to see musicians who kind of put a more adult or popular spin on preschool songs, including especially musicians who feature more diverse representation, really take off on YouTube. So a great example of that is a creator whose channel, Gracie's Corner, has recently exploded. You know, he puts, whether it's hip hop or Afro beats or Latin twists on popular kid songs. And again, with that living room popularity, families really appreciating some kids music that the whole family can bop along to.
We're
big
Gracie's Corner fans.
Yeah, we're Gracie's Corners fans too. So if you're watching, hi. But no, Alexis, I think that's a really great point to bring up, just because music itself, when it comes to kids' music, I think parents and caregivers are trying to, they want to watch too, or they're passively listening or passively watching. So it's not that we're not creating content that is directly targeted to parents, but we are keeping them in mind when we're thinking about how we're incorporating different types of lessons into our content, or the sound. You know, we want something to be a little bit modern or new or fresh, like our ping pong song that we just launched on our new Dora YouTube channel. So I think music is great. And another great example that I've seen all over TikTok and maybe watch, don't tell my boss, is Bluey. Bluey has a really great co-viewing rate, and I think it's just interesting for both parents and kids. So you do keep the parents in mind as a secondary audience, for sure. And I do think the trends are going that way, like Alexis is saying with preschool music, especially because they're kind of tired of the mind-numbing repetition songs that we all know and love, but maybe we want something new.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, Marley, you touched on discoverability. So for you guys, you're all established. Is there an issue for you with discoverability when you're like maybe launching new channels, new content? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, everyone goes through that. I think it's just part of the growing pains of starting a channel, especially on the creator side. My biggest piece of advice to them, and they always hate hearing it because it's the most obvious, but they also have the hardest time following it, is to just be consistent with it. It Rome wasn't built in a day. And I think YouTube really rewards people who keep on trying. And everyone is sort of chasing that instantly viral video. And I kind of like not argue against that, but caution against it. I've seen a lot of times people will come out with a video that really pops off right away, and all of that success right out the gate can be really, really overwhelming for people, and you sort of don't know what to do after that. And I've seen people get that and then freeze, not put another video out for weeks, maybe even a handful of months at a time. And then, they kind of wasted that out the gate growth that they had because they didn't know what to do with it. I think there's something to be said for the experience of slow growth over a decent period of time, trying things and realizing what works and what doesn't, and going back to the drawing board as needed.
Answer. So the growth period for growing your audience is obviously long. It's the marathon, right? That's what I think you've heard before. Yeah. So when you have established IPs and content that easily attracts an audience, you guys kind of have that figured out. But how can a creator who's just starting out get their content noticed? Is there any tip or trick? Like you mentioned, just something going viral, but then they have to kind of follow through and maintain that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say when you notice, to go back to actually to what something Alexis was saying, is if you notice something's working, dive into your data in YouTube Studio and see what that is, and do it again and see if it keeps working, and you just kind of work and refine things from there. I also think we're living in a golden age of YouTube knowledge. There are so many YouTube channels out there with tips and tricks and things that they're discovering. And the beauty of YouTube is that it's free. So you can watch all of those videos and try all those strategies at no cost to you. So yeah, just pay attention to things as they're working, or even more importantly, as they're not working. You don't want to keep doing something and kind of realize one day, oh, you're running into a brick wall.
Yeah, that's funny, Marley. I was thinking, I was going to say, I'm often the person, Marc knows this, who has to say no when it comes to strategy and creative. And Marc and I talk about this all the time, where I think YouTube is just a really great platform to learn how to kill your darlings, because you want to keep doing what's working and what's not working. And you need to put your audience first. And you get all of this great real-time data on YouTube. And you should listen to it. It's giving you the numbers for a reason. So whether those are good numbers or bad numbers, you have to pay attention to how things are doing and what's working.
Yeah, and it can really make you question yourself at times. I know a guy who did I'm trying to remember what movie review it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it garnered a whole audience from a different genre than he usually covers. And then all of a sudden, that's all this brand new audience wanted. And he really had to sit down and have a conversation with himself about hey, is this the type of content that I want to keep covering moving forward? And it ultimately wasn't. And me and him really had to strategize all right, well, if you're not going to do that, you need to figure out and accept that you're going to hit a downward trend after this, but also let's plan how to dig yourself up out of that. But yeah, it's a really great platform to learn how to make really tough decisions.
And I think, we have the luxury on Nickelodeon of having a very vast library of content to play with. And even if we don't, when we have New Door coming out, we're able to make our own. What's the trick is to figure out how you can make a volume of content without breaking the bank and breaking your back. So like, how can you take the content you've created, remix it, repurpose it in another way? How can you get more uses out of the videos that you're making? Can you, we do something on our channels for preschool, which is, you know, fortunately for us, preschool audiences aren't as discerning as, say, an older kid or adults, where we could take a compilation that has 15 clips in it, throw it up in the air, and wherever they land, again, that's a whole new video. And, you know, so we kind of like can reshuffle. We can reshuffle, you know, it's not that random, but like essentially we can take existing content that we've already made and reshuffle it to make something new out of it. So how can you as a creator manage to do something similar? How can you create a volume of content that you can feed the beast consistently with? And that's really, like Marley was saying, is that it's just about consistency and volume. You know, you got to just have a volume of content that you can publish on a consistent cadence.
Right. When we're talking about engagement, I mean, is there a different approach for video versus podcast or music? I mean, how do you handle that? Because I know right now podcasting is pretty large on YouTube, right? So I'm just curious how you engage those audiences and retain them.
I'd be curious to see what Alexis has to say.
You know, I'm not a podcasting expert, so I don't really have the data about like how you should analyze those differently. One thing I will note about podcasts, it's definitely a priority area for YouTube, and so we do encourage podcasters to upload that content to YouTube, and we continue to like update new products and features related to that. But one thing that just came up recently, talking to some creators for kids, is parents increasingly focused on those non-screen time moments, you know, whether that's the hour before bedtime or in the car. And so, you know, YouTube can be a great way to ensure that they're still getting access to the content they love, the stories they love, but maybe with the screen off. So that's what I'm excited about for the future of podcasts.
Awesome.
Yeah, we really like podcasts on our side, because an episode of a podcast it's half an episode of a video already completed. You know, the audio is already done, so we can take that audio and make something with it and turn it into a video. That, like Alexis was saying, it's such a podcasts are it's theater of the mind. So how do you keep that theater of the mind going when it's actually playing on a screen? And you know, lots of people do it differently. We've seen a bunch of examples. Cocomelon does like a mix of like storybook and like kinetic text. Thomas and Friends just does the very basic just screenshots of the episode that just basically page flip as the story goes. We've been doing things as elaborate as fully custom animating an episode of a podcast, because like I said, that's half your work already done for you. And we're working on ways now with our head of podcasts, Lynn Keston-Sessler, on how to extend podcasts onto YouTube in a way that is cost effective and easy for us to make. So we're not going out and having to animate 17 minutes of custom content. How can we take that and put it on YouTube in a way that is still engaging, but also just like the creator at home? How can we do it in a way that isn't going to break the bank or our backs? How can we do it? Because also podcasts are very long, and you know, animating 17 minutes isn't easy. So yeah, so we're actively working on that right now. We have a series coming out soon. I can't say the name of it. I don't think I can, right, Jess? No. Anyway, but we've got a really exciting one coming out that we've animated a number of episodes for. Can't wait for people to see it.
Awesome. So going back to like the tools you have to analyze all the data, how do you figure out what your competitors are doing, and the trends for that, and how can like a lone creator use those tools, or is there anything out there for them to use?
Yeah, there's a ton. Once again, YouTube Studio there's so much useful data in there. It not just about your videos, but like videos that your viewers are also watching. I think for first time creators, there's like I don't know, there's this air of fear to YouTube Studio, but like I cannot stress enough that you really should be in that data, especially as you start to really build up a solid library of content. You need to be in there paying attention to things. But outside of that, TubeBuddy is super useful. There's TubeFilter. They all have very reasonable subscription rates. And then, there's a ton of other stuff from there, but those are the main ones that I would say for someone like starting out, or maybe like in the latter point of the beginning of their journey. That's like the best ones in my boat.
I also can't emphasize enough, especially to people who are just starting out, is really just to be a student of YouTube, and especially YouTube Kids. Spend time watching the content that's available and featured on that app. YouTube Kids is different than YouTube Main, where we really do have an element of human curation, where we program content. We have special moments that we celebrate in the app, whether it's holidays or things like Kindness Month. And if you start to take a look at the content that we're programming, you'll get a sense for the priority areas that we have. Our highest priority for kids is definitely high quality content. And we recently, or a few years ago now, published our quality principles for kids content that's available through our YouTube Help Center. So that's always a really great starting place for people to understand, here's what YouTube is going to help prioritize when it comes to new kids content. Things like being a good person, exploring your unique interests and creativity. And then it also tells you some pretty clear watch out areas. But the other point I just want to make, especially when you're studying what's working on YouTube, is unlike TV, where I feel like often new content is aiming to fill a white space or do something very different than what's existing, on YouTube, you can be very successful replicating what's already working. You don't always have to be reinventing the wheels. And there's some very great tried and true formats, especially for preschool, which is a great way to explore putting your own unique point of view on something, whether it's like we've talked about familiar nursery rhymes, familiar stories for preschoolers, or even YouTube formats like a listicle, or like Marley was talking about, reviews. Even kids love reviews. And so just doing your unique spin and seeing what works, again, a great way to study.
I was going to say that Marley makes such a great point about, or it's interesting that you say people are afraid of YouTube, because like Alexis is saying, you can be such a great student of YouTube, because I think YouTube tells you what it wants really at the end of the day. And it's so great that you can put your spin on a format that works for a creator, that works for Nickelodeon. And there's a lot of really great tools coming out. Like you guys are releasing the A/B testing tool, which means you can easily test and swap thumbnails and figure out what thumbnails are working. Previously, we would use something like TubeBuddy to do that. But now you can do that within YouTube, which is great. And I even saw someone mention in the comments that YouTube Shorts were doing really great for them. If there's a new tool or new product that YouTube has released, I think prioritize it. So that's why you should be a student of YouTube, like Alexis was saying. But Marc, I'm going to pass the mic back to you so you can tell me what I was going to say.
And now it's going to sound bad because you said Marley had a great idea or said something great, and I wasn't going to say that, but Marley did say something great. No, but
You guys are going to give me a big head.
Kind of like dovetailing what Alexis was saying. Jess and I were talking the other day. We're like, I asked Jess, I'm like, is it safe to say if you're not doing what everyone else is doing on YouTube, then you're not going to get discovered? And I kind of think that's true. Obviously, you have to put your own spin on it. You have to put your own flavor on it. But if you're doing, like Alexis said, doing something brand new and fresh, it's probably not going to get discovered. So you want to find those formats, like Alexis was saying, and what's your take on them? What's your spin on them? And we do it all the time, all day long. That's what we do. We're not trying to invent something new. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. But we do use wheels, and maybe this could be a good opportunity, Karen, to show some clips. But one of the things that we do on Nick Preschool is we have so many clips of shows and so many scenes, and we've shown them so many times. How can we make that feel fresh to our audience again? We know just through studying YouTube, we're students of YouTube. We do it all the time. We know when our retention spikes, and we know that retention spikes when there's gamified moments, when there's surprises. So we have this format that we call a randomizer, where a clip randomizer, where we take clips and we add a gamified element before each clip. And when the game ends and it reveals a character, we go to a clip that features that character. So we have a little video here of of a few randomizers that we do. Everything from a kind of a horse race game at a carnival to a spinning wheel, a live action spinning wheel, a digital spinning wheel, a vending machine, a claw machine. These are all just fun ways to engage the audience, to get them to connect with our characters, to have some element of surprise, and then go to a clip, go to something that we already have. Like I was saying, how can you take the content you've already made and extend it? This is how we can take content that's already made and extend it in something completely new. So roll the clip.
Let's take that.
On your marks, get set, go! And they're off. Who do you think will win?
Awesome! It's me, Sky. It's Tiny Chef. What a day! Right this way. Woo! Don't worry, I'm brilliant. Hi, Tiny Chef.
What show will we spin to this time? It's Bubble Guppies.
It's the Nick Jr. vending machine. We can use these tokens to vend a friend.
Let's bow wow Bill!
Hello, Rubble.
So they're just fun, quick ways to keep our old clips, keep them exciting.
That's awesome. All right. So I think we can go to some questions now. We have a series of those, and Alex was going to get those out for us, right, Alex?
Awesome. Thank you all so much. This was so informative, so informative to just learn about everything across different platforms. So thank you for coming. So I just showed our first question, which is, as a voiceover artist, what are your recommendations for breaking into the animation scene, and would it be recommended to make a profile for children specifically or combine content with adult-like content?
I'll jump in there. So we actually represent a couple of YouTube voice actors. My biggest piece of advice would be to get active in animation communities, whether that be on something like Discord or Twitter. Find people who are in need of voice actors and offer up your services. The other thing is, no one is going to bring you onto your project or hire you if they aren't able to hear your stuff. So start making some content of your own. In the world of like voice actor influencers, I see a lot of people do things like comic dubs, whether that's like voicing over funny web comics or superhero comics that come out. Little things that you can do to just get the voices that you can do out there. I see a lot of that does really, really well in YouTube Shorts because, it's perfectly suited for something like a quick gag or something like that. So yeah, I just start making content with your voice and put it out there. And then from there, kind of start reaching out to community members and see if there are ways for you to collaborate.
The one thing I would add to your second part of the question, should you start a separate channel for the kids content? We do treat content that's made for kids differently than content that's intended for adults on YouTube. So if you're going to have anything that's a little bit more of what we call mature or racy themes in your content, so maybe more of that Adult Swim type of animation, I definitely would recommend keeping that on a different channel than anything intended for audiences under 13.
Marley made a great point. Another great point is that, and this applies to anybody, if you want to write, animate, design, when you're just starting out, sometimes you just have to partner up with people and just get some content out there, even if you're not getting paid for it, because you need to have a track record. You need to have something to show that you've done. And even if you didn't get paid for it, it's still good to have because you need a portfolio. Also, you want to add an A to the beginning of your name, because whenever I get auditions, they're always alphabetized, and by the time you get down to Z, you're really tired. So I kind of I might get a little lazy and just go with A, but it's kind of a joke. But yeah, just get your work out there, and also hook up. Getting an agent's hard, and that's a whole thing. And fortunately, Nickelodeon, we have a whole awesome talent department that we just say, oh, we need somebody to do this or that, and they go find that person for us. So we're kind of spoiled there.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'll move on to our next question. How do you or don't you lean into current trends while staying authentic to the IP, which I think is a really good question for this conversation, working with so much familiar characters and so many familiar themes and stories.
Yeah, I can answer that one. I think the biggest thing is, again, knowing your target audience, understanding that character and understanding the audience's needs. And then taking a look at the trend, for example, Spin the Wheel started because it was a trend that was on YouTube. So you take the Spin the Wheel format and you think, what is most authentic to Nick Jr.? Well, the Nick Jr. audience likes to see the characters. So we're going to put the characters on the wheel. The Nick Jr. audience wants to see the most popular characters first. So we're going to make sure the wheel lands on a Paw Patrol character first. And then we'll go into a clip. And from there, after millions of spin the wheel videos, it's not millions, but feels like that some days, millions of spins for sure, you can see how long clips should be and what kind of clips. And you can compare that to what other audiences are, or what other channels are doing, rather, and you can see what feels right for your audience. So I would say start there, think about your IP, figure out what feels natural for the channel and the existing audience that's already there.
And so, say we could also probably show another clip for our Dora clip. There's music is obviously very popular on YouTube, nursery rhymes for preschoolers, and we just have our brand new Dora series is just premiering, and we actually have. I saw in our comments we have one of our talented Dora producers in the chat right now, and rather than have Dora sing the wheels on the bus, we have her singing a very popular nursery rhyme in Latin America called Pin Pon. And so that's that's authentic to the character, authentic to Dora's world. And we actually have a whole series called Sing and Dance with Dora. And Dora's doing dances and songs that are representative of her community. But that still leans into the nursery rhyme public domain trend on preschool music. So I don't know, Karen, if you want to play that as well. Morel, who's actually in the comments, sang the song.
Okay.
Ping pong the cardboard dolly, he likes to watch his face. He mixes soap and water and bubbles float away. Lava, 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 lava tu carita. Lava, 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 lava tu carita, sí. Ping pong, ping pong. Ping pong, ping pong. Ping pong es un muñeco muy lindo y de cartón. Se lava la carita con agua y con jabón.
And that's an example of one of what I call like our high lift series, where that's fully custom animated, soup to nuts by us. And I think that's a way to answer to circle back to the question is how do we follow a trend and make it authentic to the IP? That's one of the ways.
Okay. We have a question from Ashley, right, Alex?
Yes.
I'm not going to pop it up there. It's pretty large. It's what trends are expected to gain popularity in children's entertainment on YouTube and streaming services over the next few years, specifically story themes, editing, and animation styles.
So this is an area where, again, coming from the TV side, we used to make big bets. I can remember at Warner Brothers, we were like, this is the year of mermaids, and we would go all in on a certain area. On YouTube, it's much harder. And again, the audience is so much broader to pinpoint those specific areas. One area that I'd say is kind of evergreen in popularity and where you look at the data on parents today and the next generation of parents coming up, where we continue to see growth is gaming, generally gaming content. So that's either storylines that show great gamers playing the games they love, taking popular gaming characters and putting them in new story settings. So when partners come to me and say, where's an area we should be investing? I always say gaming content for kids is likely going to be something that's here to stay and continues to see growth.
I think there's some more questions. Alex, want to take the next one?
Sure. Our next question is how do you support animators that can't post weekly, specifically YouTube? We know it takes time to produce and animate, so how does their content rise if it can't necessarily catch on to the algorithm?
Yeah, so I hear this song every day. I find that fear or that hesitation a little, and I don't want to minimize it, but a little overblown, because at the end of the day, fans of animated content, specifically animation influencers, I find are really, really understanding of that fact. So long as you are consistent. So whether that means you can only afford to get one video out a month, that's fine. They will understand that and they'll wait that month, but you have to be following that schedule that you've set for yourself, that expectation that you've set for your audience. So what I would say is for any animators that are watching and you want to start making YouTube content, do it. And I understand like it can be scary not being able to get something out all the time, but set a time frame for yourself that you know you can at least stick to. And try to stick to that as much as you can. And I think you'll find that your audience that you start to develop will be very understanding, especially if you're communicating that to them. So make use of the comments section, make use of the community tab, and talk to your audience and let them know, like, you are going to get this from me at this cadence. And like, this is my promise to you. And I think if you can find some level of consistency in there, you should be good. You know, you might not grow as fast as, say, a vlogger who's posting every day, but you will find growth.
Sarah asks, how do you find the balance of stimulation and keeping kids interested in the content on the screen?
That's a good question for sure, because we definitely don't want to overstimulate kids, but we also know that fast pace content does better for us. And what that means is we're not staying on one shot too long, or we're not on a scene that has too much dialogue for a short period of time, or for a long period of time rather. But I would say that the way that we balance it is about the framing and YouTube style framing, rather than, are we changing 4 seconds or anything like that. What we're doing is saying what's happening on the screen. How can we change in a way that feels healthy and good and dynamic for kids, rather than constantly shifting to something else. So it might mean zooming in or zooming out, have some sort of special effect on screen, like bubbles, something like that. A little visual payoff is what we refer to them as. And for us, I think that's the best way we've been able to do that at Nick Jr.
And one little trick, and I don't know if everybody does this, I do it, but I watch almost all of our stuff on the phone, because that's how the audience is, most of your audience is going to be watching it. So, and that's when you really see how tight your framing needs to be. So if you're cutting something, you're on the big 30-inch monitor, it looks great. And we'll get cuts from vendors all the time, and it's beautiful animation. But then when it's shrunk down to a tablet and a phone, the action is tiny, the characters are tiny. So you really want to make sure that you're close on faces, because and everything I'm saying is for preschool YouTube. So I'm not saying this is for adults, but you want to be close on expressions. You want to see the wonder in the character's eyes, and so you don't want to have a lot of the storytelling be lost in a wide shot because the kids are watching on a phone. So you want, a lot of it has to do with, like Jess was saying, framing, rather than, trying to dazzle them with cuts every 2 seconds. You want to try to engage them with expressions and close-up storytelling.
Yeah, and Mark, that's a really good tip as well for thumbnails. Take a look at your thumbnail on a mobile device, because you might think you have something that looks really great, and then when you look at it small, you can't tell who's in the video, or the expression is weird, or the text is too small, or the timestamp doesn't look right. So it's just a really good tip in general to remember that every user experience is going to be different. So you should check the different types of devices when you can.
Yeah, review anything visual on the phone. I tell all of the influencers that I represent to do that too. It can be tough with artists because, they're drawing and doing everything. So everything all of a sudden becomes precious, but you have to make sure that you're tailoring things to the way your audience is going to be seeing them.
Awesome. Morgan has a question for Alexis. She wants to know, when you say you can search YouTube Kids with something like songs about to see what people are watching, are these results national or specific to a location or an age?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure what degree of filtering and personalization we use for those search results, but I will say the songs about depression results don't surprise me. We actually find that a lot of parents, again, appreciate on YouTube the breadth of music we have. So helping kids deal with big feelings is a topic that comes up a lot on YouTube. So how can I feel better when I'm sad is something we've heard from creators like Sesame Street, Jack Hartman Music, Danny Joe's Treehouse. We really do try to represent, the kind of full gamut of emotions on YouTube versus maybe just the happy songs they find on other platforms. So I'm sorry, I don't have the specifics on the degree of personalization on the search, but I will say, those search results I think are probably representative of kind of the type of content parents might be searching for younger kids.
I think we had another question. Tips for going after niche audiences.
First off, know what niche you want to be in. Time and time again, I see people who, want to be in a niche, but then if you grill them on what it is they want to be in, they have no idea. They're kind of just, I don't know, just like spreading themselves too thin across too many different ones, and they're not focusing in on something. On an influencer level, like an individual creator level, pick something that excites you and make stuff on that, because audiences are really, really good at sussing out people who are not genuine, who do not care about things. And the second that they notice that, they will bounce off of you so quickly and never come back. So, just pick something that you're genuinely excited about. And congrats, that's your niche. You talk about that now.
Well, what Marley just said about being genuine is something that we talk about a lot, is that, we're making content for preschoolers. And if what we're making, whether it be a clip from a show or something fully custom animated, if it's not making us, the creators, smile and laugh and giggle, and we're not having fun making it, that's going to be translated into the video, and kids will pick up on that. So the most important thing for whenever we're making stuff is that, are we, the people making it, having fun? Yes, it's stressful. We got to hit deadlines and we got budgets and things. But if we're not smiling or laughing when we're making this stuff, if it's not infused with that sense of play and fun, then that's going to come through in your content, whatever it is. If you're making it for adults or kids or whatever, for preschool, we want to make sure that we are having fun making it, because if we're not, then the piece won't be fun.
And then, I just want to add, if you're building a niche audience, that already means that there's a niche community. And as long as you're genuine and excited, like Marc and Marley were saying, build your community and engage with them. Engage in the comments, engage in the live stream chat, engage in the community tab. And that's how you'll keep that niche audience, because you're sharing that experience. We were talking earlier, I love restaurants, I love food. It's not exactly niche, but talking about restaurants and food as a young adult is niche. So I have to find that community. And when I do, we get excited, we plan dinners. And I think the same principle applies to YouTube and building an audience, is loving your community and feeding them with the engagement.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on that question, or any more niche tips? Nope. Okay. We have another question from a LinkedIn user. Curious what you all think about same gender principal characters featured in Nimona, which I think is a little, skewing older. Controversial, thumbs up, any insights?
I haven't seen Nimona yet. I've been extremely busy, so my slate of movies has quickly grown. But no, I think it's awesome. I've read some of the graphic novel before, so.
Okay. Awesome.
I also haven't seen it, but I know we feature a bunch of clips and compilations from Netflix on YouTube Kids. Generally, we love content that represents the world we live in today. So I think thumbs up, but I can't speak to this specific title.
Okay. Any last minute comments about engaging our audience before we wrap this up? No?
Well, I just want to say, sorry, Alexis, we talked a lot about doing the same and feeding the beast and things like that, but also remember to have fun, because like Marley was saying, your audience is going to be able to tell if you're not. Marc said the same thing. Alexis pointed to all of the great things that you can find out about YouTube Kids and maybe some topics you feel like aren't appropriate for kids or whatever, but you can find those things. So just test the waters, have fun, and be yourself.
Yeah, and I would just add, create with intention. Kids learn something from everything they watch. So make sure, whatever intentions you're putting into that content is what you want kids to take away from it.
All right. Anybody else?
No,
Okay.
I think that was a perfect way to wrap it up.
I do too. And I would thank you guys all for being here. Really valuable insights, really great panel. Thank you so much for being with Children's Media Association. And we have more events coming up next week, so look on our calendar. But have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.